Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. That old Friday afternoon show that airs on Sunday nights. So it's always going to get weird around here today. It always does. Yeah. Drinks are flowing. Hard AF seltzers are flowing. Speaking of which, Hard AF Seltzer, that closes. WeFunder.com/Hard AF Seltzer closes on April 30th. If you would like to invest in the company, you have until April 30th. We were informed by the beloved SEC that, I guess it's like a 6-month thing, and then they shut it down. So nothing we can do about that, but we're still leaving 30% of the company open up to you. So go ahead, have at it. You have until April 30th right now. We got that tea rolling out. Just ordered those cans last week. Got some 19.2s heading out across the nation. Looking forward to that. Also, next Sunday nights, we'll be live with the Super Bowl. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Delco, Eagles versus Chiefs. Join us for a live watch here. Mr. Derek Wolf from our NFL show will be joining us. He's flying in from Denver. Laszlo Lopez will be here. Delco will be up here on stage. You can see the agony in his face for one quarter. I think the Eagles will be up all the way until the fourth, and then that's where the Chiefs will turn it on, and that'll be fun. That's where you get the most enjoyment in life, I feel, is watching others' misery.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see the Eagles win, obviously, just because I like Saquon Barkley and it changes things up a little bit. Yeah. I don't care either way. I mean, KC winning a three-peat would be dope too, to be honest.
Money's all I care about. Money is really all I care about at the end of the day.
Yeah, fair enough. And then but seeing especially Philly fans get their souls snatched out, that would be nice. Actually, either these are two horrible fan bases. They're both bad, right?
I like the Chiefs. We had a blast at the Chiefs game.
Yeah. The people that were there when they sucked, those Chiefs fans are cool.
Yeah.
But not this new crowd.
Well, there's a new T-shirt crowd of Chiefs fans, so they'll be here.
You already saw my soul get sucked out at the Airbnb last time the Eagles played the Chiefs.
That's true.
That's
We
right.
watched a game together.
Yeah, you guys did. Yeah, how was that for him?
It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
And then had to drive 13 hours back from Phoenix the next day with my soul just dissipated.
And all my drugs and guns in the car.
Man, I thought about that at the Ohio State game, too. I was like, man, if I flew from the inauguration down to Atlanta on the last flight. And
they got spanked,
Oh, my God, dude, I would have been crushed. But we'll be here together this time, Delco. All of us will be here together. Join us for that. Laszlo Lopez is confirmed. GhostBed, the mattress is out there. So we'll set him up on an adjustable base right in front of us, and you'll get to see his lovely body on full display. Looking forward to that. As far as today's show goes, man, it's going to be a hot one today. So this morning, it started off with a weird rumor of an actual person who was a trans pilot who was allegedly flying the Black Hawk helicopter.
Yeah, it happened not just with that, but also so there were two, and this is sad news, obviously, two young ice skating girls that were on the plane that died. And then somebody else, I think that somebody,
like a big TikTok influencer or something like that?
Somebody mentioned their coach was dead too, and she's like, no, I'm alive. And then this one too, someone's like, oh, it was the trans pilot that did this. And that the dude or whatever the fuck it is on the internet, so it was like, no, I'm alive. It wasn't me.
Yeah, and a bunch of these, so this happened, I think, with 5 or 6 people today where they've had to make videos and say, you got the wrong person. I'm alive and I'm fine, and please stop doing this.
Well, our guest today might have some insight on this from both the technical perspective, but also the fun perspective, because I don't know if you remember, Mark Ulsh, retired CW4 pilot, helicopter pilot, is on the show today to talk about some of this stuff. But I don't know if you remember this back in like the early days of the GWAT. There were all these rumors about celebrities dying and shit. I don't know if we were just like bored or something. But everybody's like, "Oh, J-Lo, did you hear J-Lo died?" And we're like, "Dude, what?
Yeah,
no way." And nobody died.
No,
it was all Stu. Do you remember that, Mark?
Yeah, the rumor mill's ugly, man.
It is. This one, though, I mean, it's getting uglier and uglier. And I talked about this the other day on Ross Patch from Revolution, where it's like, how much is enough? Like, whoever this there's like, again, 5 or 6 people's lives were potentially ruined. That trans person, whoever the fuck that was, like, that was trending #1. And it was like, dude, imagine waking up on Twitter and seeing your name, face, and everything that you were suicidal, you crashed into a plane, killed 70 people. Not only did you not do that, but you're also alive, and now you're quasi-famous and have to walk around the world with this weird thing on your conscience that you definitely didn't do. That's why we wanted to have you here on the show today, Mark. When you watch this footage, which we'll play in a second because we've gotten some clear video since yesterday, what was your first thought and what actually happened here?
Yeah, I'll watch for you to play it. Is it going to come up on your feed?
Yeah, we'll play it afterwards. And the first time, in the meantime,
he's not going to be able to see it.
Yeah, you won't be able to see it. But in the meantime, what actually happened when you saw the footage?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I've just a little bit of backstory. I used to be assigned to this unit. I was an instructor while I was there. It was my job to make sure everybody knew how to fly those routes and fly those routes safely. So the moment that I heard that there was a crash involving a helicopter and a jet, I told my wife, I bet you that plane was landing to runway 33, crossing the Potomac in front of that helicopter, and they didn't see it because we had seen that situation 100 times before. So understanding it from that perspective kind of really makes it hit home for me personally. And I think what a lot of people are not taking into account is, like, I've heard a lot of questions. How come they didn't see each other?
Yeah, let's start with that one because that's a valuable one.
Before we get into that, can you tell us what that unit is first?
Okay, that's a 12th Aviation Battalion out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia. They do VIP transport. So, SecDef, everybody from him down is going to go to them for transportation. They have referred to as the Gold Top Blackhawks that usually fly the VIPs.
Pat 25.
They also have some contingency missions where emergencies happen in the Capitol. They spring into action. They fly people to special places. So there's what the SecDef was referring to the other day as continuation of government mission. That's what that is. They train for that. So they're just an airlift unit really for special purposes around the DC area.
And is it they have an operational side, but is it also a training place as well, or is it just they're just doing continuing ed basically? Yeah,
they were just doing, in every Army unit, you got to do continuation training. You got to make sure you do your mission. So there's trainers inside every unit that are going to conduct that training. And that's what I heard the initial report is they were doing a proficiency flight, a training flight. Okay. We refer to that as an A-part in the Army.
And so why couldn't they see? Because as a civilian who's never been inside of a Black Hawk, explain to the audience why this Black Hawk helicopter pilot couldn't see the commercial airliner jet in front of them.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. We've seen all these videos, and the videos that we see of this incident are taken from a ground perspective, right? They're taken by video cameras on the ground. So they're looking up in the sky, and those two aircraft are silhouetted to that camera on the ground because it's looking up. If you're in that helicopter or in that airplane and you're at the same flight level, you're actually confused. You could possibly be confusing the other aircraft and their lights with ground lighting behind them because you're higher. You're at their level. And you're now mistaking those lights, the landing lights and position lights on those other aircraft, for really bright cultural lighting. I mean, if you've ever flown around the DC area at night, there's lights everywhere. And it can, if you're wearing NVGs, those will wash out your NVGs. It can be very, very easy to mistake that lighting, especially if you're on a collision course. When you're on a collision course with another aircraft, from that perspective, a converging perspective, they're not moving. That light's not moving. It appears stationary, even though it's closing with you.
And forgive me, from a civilian side, what is an NVG?
Night vision goggles. So,
night vision
Yeah,
goggles.
night
Okay.
vision, yeah. I was also. I talked to
NVG,
some
gotcha.
other Black Hawk pilots, and they were talking about the elevation that the Black Hawk was at
Yeah.
versus the fixed wing aircraft, and how, one, your peripherals are a little knocked out because you're looking through toilet paper tubes. They're green or white or whatever it happens to be, but also there's an instrument panel and not glass up here, so it's not like you have a great visibility when you're looking up either, right?
Yeah, the Blackhawk. You've got good visibility. You've got better visibility than an airplane does, but you still it's limited. And when you're wearing NVGs or nods, like a lot of people refer to them as, you have to move your head, and it's called scanning. That's your peripheral vision. When I flew those routes at night, just personally, I would brief to fly night unaided without goggles, just because of how bright it was down there, that I felt safer. I felt like I had more situational awareness when I wasn't wearing them. So a lot of guys do that. I know from experience. Some guys want to keep them on because they feel like it's better, or they want a long time. So
why even do these test flights or training flights during over a commercial runway is what I really don't understand. And that's another big question that has come up here. Because Dan mentioned it the other day on the show. Not only do you have DCA, which is Ronald Reagan Airport, but you also have Dulles there. And then you've also got the military facility.
And then you have a no-fly zone over the Pentagon White House area, which is Arlington all the way up to, downtown D.C. basically. So it's a shit show. That whole area is a shit show. Right.
So why even risk it by having those training flights go at that time over that exact airspace?
Yeah, that's a good question. Pilots have to know how to fly those routes. You're always going to have somebody who needs to be familiarized with those routes. You do fly them for practice so that when you have to go in and pick up a code, which is what we refer to as a VIP, if you've got to go in and pick them up, it shouldn't be your first time flying those routes. So the big, explanation is that for proficiency purposes, you want to know what you're doing when you're down there, because it's, like you said, it is a shit show. The radios are very busy. If you've listened to any of the audio, you almost don't understand what they're saying because they're using brevity codes as reporting points. As VisSep means visual separation, but you don't have time to say that whenever there's 10 aircraft on final approach into Reagan and you've got to talk to control tower.
Sure.
So practice is the big answer for that.
Okay, and then the initial reports so far are that the ATC tower there was understaffed, which I'm told is quite common these days, not just in this area but across the country. Is that something that you guys had to deal? And just I want to remind everybody, the way he's describing this, there's 50 fucking things going on at the same time. There's plus the instrument panels, plus the visual field that you're dealing with as well, right? Mm-hmm. And you're hearing this in your ears at the same time. It's a lot of stuff to process. And then, like, the same thing for the ATC tower. If there's not enough people working in the tower, that means somebody's doing more than they should be, right? Mm-hmm. Which is never a good idea. Like, if I'm an infantry guy, I'm a gunfighter. If I have to cover more than my sector, now we've got a problem, right? Like, I'm not going to be as good at that as I would have been if somebody else was covering theirs as well. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is.
Right. Task overloading from the ATC perspective could have possibly played into it. I don't want to speak into something that I don't have a definitive answer on, but there have been times you can tell when someone gets busy and frustrated and they don't want to talk to you and they don't have time and they've got too much on their plate. That very well could have happened. I did, listening to it, I did think, why didn't they have that aircraft? If they're on converging patterns, which the tower realized that's why he called them back Pat 25, confirmed visual separation. He didn't have a warm and fuzzy about it. Mm-hmm. You could tell that. And having flown that route before, what they would commonly do is if they had any question that you were going to converge with landing traffic, they would have you hold or they would deviate your route. And right there at Haynes Point, I don't know if you've looked at the helo route structure. If you ever want to reference it, go to skyvector.com and take the map over top of DC and zoom in, and then click on the DC helo chart, and it'll show you what the helo routes look like around there. But they will deviate your route and tell you, hey, I need you to fly out Route 4 to Greenbelt, or it surprised that they let him continue. The aircraft told Tower that they had visual on the aircraft and requested visual separation, and that they're asking the tower to, hey, let me go inside of what you're comfortable with because I see the jet. I'm not going to fly into it. Problem is that the tower approved that, and they didn't have the right aircraft in sight.
So one of the things that we read on yesterday's show was that, being understaffed, typically there would be somebody inside the tower communicating with the Black Hawk and then one with the commercial airliner. Now, that obviously didn't happen during this. Is that common or uncommon? And then, in all those flights you did, were you talking to two different people at one time, or how does that work?
So from what I understand, that it is policy to have two guys on tower frequency, one of them talking to the jets, one of them talking to the helicopters or, extraneous traffic. Jets and helicopters don't like to mix traffic that much. They fly at different altitudes and airspeeds, and they cause each other problems. Typically you would, especially whenever it's busy. Let me backtrack just for a second. DCA, Reagan, any big Class Bravo airspace airport has different times when they're real busy, and then they have times where it slows down, and then they have times where it gets real busy again. And in the evening, that early evening time period is when traffic picks up. There's a lot of arrivals coming in the evening. And typically there should be, from what I understand, there should be two guys in the tower on that break at that time.
And the other part that we found since, and Trump mentioned it in his initial address, along with a bunch of other stuff, but he mentioned that the helicopter was flying a little too high, and I think we saw now with the ATC traffic that they told him not to go above 200, and it was clearly above 200, right? And just to clarify, we said this on the show on Thursday as well, but this is on 33 especially. It's one of the lowest incoming routes that exists in any airport in America, is my understanding. I think Oakland is kind of close, and there's one. Is it somewhere in the Inland Empire? I think there's one that goes over a hilltop, but it's a small private one. For as far as like big public airports, Oakland and Reagan on 33 are like super low.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that all correct?
Yeah, DCA is notorious. It's an airport that airlines have to do qualification to fly into because of proximity of the prohibited areas, which you were talking about, just north. When you take off the runways there, you've got to do an immediate left turn so you don't fly over the White House, so you don't fly over the Vice President's house. And, coming into land, especially runway 33, you've got to descend down over the Air Force Base. It's on the other side of the river there. It is. It can be a little more challenging. They get low. As far as the helicopter being too high, that's a published route structure with a published altitude, and everybody knows them. If you've flown that enough, you know that when you're going by Reagan, you've got to be 200 and below. So I think that's probably one of the biggest questions that we may not have an answer to until they pull the cockpit voice recorder as to why they were above 200 feet. And like, you don't have to give a helicopter pilot an excuse to fly low. We love it. It's one of the great things about flying helicopters. So why were they gaining altitude as they passed their, that's a difficult question. Yeah,
it's a mystery. I'm looking at some of the captions from the ATC traffic, and the call sign for the helicopter was Blackjack 3. He says, "Tower, did you see that?" And ATC says, "Go around, maintain 3,000. Blackjack 3, can you return to base?" Or usually they would say RTB. Proceed directly. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes? Can you go to Baltimore? They were trying to clear him out of that airspace during that time period. But 3,000 is quite a bit higher than 200.
Well, Blackjack 3 is not the incident aircraft.
Okay.
Blackjack 3 is another helicopter entity that operates in that area.
Okay.
The call sign for the incident aircraft was Pat 25.
Okay.
So you almost have to backtrack to the very beginning of the audio recordings to listen to Pat 25. First, you hear him in the loop is when he reports Memorial Bridge.
Okay.
Memorial Bridge is up by Arlington, right as soon as you come across, right by the Lincoln Memorial. They're coming down the Potomac at that point. They report Memorial Bridge, and in about 3 or 4 minutes, they're going to be right down by Reagan. Even faster than that, like a minute or two. It happens quick.
Okay, and you guys can confirm that it was a male who was flying the Black Hawk?
I don't actually know about that. I thought it was a female captain.
Here's why
I thought it was a female captain and a male chief. That it was the co-pilot. That's my understanding, but I don't know.
Yeah, here's why I asked, by the way, not to interrupt you, Mark, but as this breaking news here, they just said that 2 of the 3 have been identified publicly. However, there was a third who is a female whose family has requested they not release her name to the public, which is highly unusual, they say. Is that true?
I don't. I haven't heard who the third person was either. I've heard reports that it was a female. I can't confirm or deny. I do have friends still in the military who do know some of the individuals on that aircraft. Either way, I think whether it was a mixed crew or not, my company commander when I was there was a female, highly competent, very good at the job, and I would have trusted her to fly this route structure every day. So, that may just be kind of a nothing burger when it comes down to it. My thought more coincides with, I know one of the pilots was reported to have about 1,000 hours and the other one about 500 hours. And, they were saying, hey, that's a fairly experienced air crew. And it is.
A 1,000 is like intermediate, right? It's not like somebody like you as a CW4, but it's probably like a Chief 2 or something maybe.
Yeah, I had 3,500 hours by the time I retired.
Do you get like a pen for that? That's a lot of fucking hours.
Is there a plaque or like some kind of wings that they give you to wear?
You get the CW4, which helps.
You get an I love me wall.
According to the report, there was a male instructor pilot who had more than 1,000 hours of flight time and a female pilot who was commanding the flight at the time who had more than 500 hours
so
of flight time.
So the female was a captain and the male was a probably CW3, CW2, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is in the communication, is it all of them communicating with the tower, or the male or the female? Who would be communicating with the tower in that scenario?
It would be one of the pilots, probably the non-flying pilot. So because what you try to do in the aircraft is you try to reduce people's workload to what's manageable for them. So you'll often say, hey, you're going to fly. I'm going to talk to tower. So you can focus on what you're trying to do and give it 100% of what you're focusing on, and I can do another job, and it makes the aircraft work better, right? It's safer to operate that way. So it was likely that, it was a male's voice that was talking to tower. So I'm assuming that it was the chief talking on the radios, and possibly the female captain flying. That's who she was.
Okay, gotcha. And I'm just asking for clarification because, again, as a civilian, I've never been inside of one of these, and I'm just trying to get the structure of it. And this report came from NPR, so it's not like some dummy off of Twitter or something like that. Like it's a report that just broke here. Now, immediately afterwards, the CEO of American Airlines said that this was the Army's fault. In your opinion, having worked for this exact unit and everything else, whose fault was it?
Yeah, I want to be careful at this point. Point fingers, blame can be a really ugly thing. I'll preface what I'm going to say with this, is that every pilot has an incident they can look back on and be thankful that it didn't cost them their life. So the fact that there's families here that have to deal with the fact that, this incident may have been caused by their loved one is just something that you've got to remember when you start pointing fingers. But the Army aircraft was definitely in the wrong if they were flying too high. It could very well, the culpability of this incident could very well lay on their shoulders, primarily because of altitude and because of a misidentified aircraft.
Gotcha.
There's going to be a lot of, after an incident happens and the reports come out, there's usually a lot of, people getting fired and, life-changing decisions happening at that point, so that stuff like this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Man.
It's such a tough one, isn't it? I mean,
it is. Yeah. I mean,
it's hard.
It's speculating is interesting sometimes, I guess, but I don't know how useful.
I agree, because it's not fair to the victims either, and so I don't want to make a guess one way or the other. I just kind of wanted to run by the facts with you of what the head of American Airlines is saying to the Army and vice versa, and then kind of get your thoughts, because let's face it, you did it. You did this exact job there, and you know it better than anyone else. So, I apologize for asking the questions in this manner. Everybody's just trying to get to the bottom of it. And most of us, are in America, are civilians who look at an incident like this, and especially with the footage, which we've shown on yesterday's show, and we'll show right after you hop off here. It just looks like such a direct, perfect hit that it's unimaginable. And I was on a call this morning with one of our sports agents for Hard AF Seltzer, normal dude, and he's just like, man, how does this happen? And everybody immediately goes to conspiracy. And Dan and I talked about that the other day, and sometimes it isn't a conspiracy. Sometimes it is just an accident.
Almost always. That's what Hanlon's razor is. Don't imply malice when incompetence will suffice. And it's cruel to call it incompetence, but I mean, something that was supposed to happen didn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about misidentifying the aircraft. Is there some protocol between ATC and civilian and military pilots to say, hey, do you see that? Because the way that it read on the traffic that I read, and we haven't seen the full thing yet. We don't have the cockpit audio and the black box and all that shit yet. But it sounded like ATC called out an aircraft, but how do you know which one the fuck they're talking about? You know what I mean? Especially in that area where there's planes all over the place.
So you would have to know what runway they're lining up for. And from my understanding, they had that aircraft lined up to land runway 01, which is the one that is basically straight up and down the river. And then, as it got closer to the airport, they told it to circle and land at runway 33. So if the helicopter pilot, busy radios, lots of people talking, we call it getting stepped on, right? If somebody was talking while they were relaying critical information, that traffic got stepped on and you didn't hear it, which could have been a possibility when they reassigned that aircraft runway 33. So if he said, hey, do you see that CRJ, circle to land runway 33? He missed that little detail that they're lined up for runway 33. That's how he misidentified it.
But a good practice is to say how copy and then have the guy repeat exactly back what you just said, right? But we get lazy on the radio all the time. I'm guilty of it myself. Yeah, and the runway, the whole thing. Yeah, you read the package completely back to them just to make sure I heard what exactly you said. But we get lazy on the radio sometimes. It happens, man. Yeah,
there's a big emphasis to be quick and to learn how to use the brevity codes.
Yeah.
Learn how to shorten everything up as fast as you can. So it's really easy to miss stuff, especially when you're in a tin can flying 100 miles per hour down the river at night. It could happen very easily. One other thing that I kind of want to draw some attention to, because I'm not hearing a lot of people identify this factor, but the Black Hawk was a crew of 3. And in the Black Hawk, you have 2 pilots up front, and that crew member that's in the back is called crew chief. They would have been sitting on the right side of the aircraft. So when you're flying, they're extra eyes. and they take their job very seriously. They call out traffic. Your life is in their hands, right? So they want to live. They want to call out all the hazards in traffic. Whenever there's a crew of 3, there's not a person sitting behind the pilot on the left side, which would have been the side that jet was coming from. So if the flying pilot was sitting in the left front of that aircraft, looking downriver for the landing traffic that they're, misidentifying, they could very easily fly in front of an aircraft that's coming from their left and not see it.
Sure. Not trying to lead the witness here, but any speculation on why the helo would have been flying above the limit that it was supposed to be at?
If I were to speculate based on things that have happened to me in the past, when you get task saturated, your basic flying skills degrade. So instead of holding 100 feet and 100 knots, when you fly, let me back this up. When you fly that corridor, you're hand flying the aircraft. It's not like you're, turning a dial and telling.
You're not like setting a trim and just letting it coast, right?
You're hand flying that aircraft. Yeah. So if you become task saturated and you're looking for traffic, you're talking on the radios, then your they call it basic instrument flying skills, degrade. You start to climb, you start to slow down. If I were a betting man, I would say it's a possibility something like that was occurring in the cockpit and they didn't catch it because they were busy trying to, talk and navigate and aviate.
Yeah, I've heard that from other pilots as well, and it kind of illustrates how fucking difficult this job is in general, but especially in the most heavily air trafficked fucking place in the world.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just, not only is it the heavy traffic, but it's the unique architecture of that area, right? Where you have to take off and immediately turn left to avoid, no-fly zones and that stuff. It's just as we said before, it's a shit show up there. So the fact that they get it right almost always, and we're talking about 99.9, like 89s, right, % of the time is pretty amazing, to be honest, that this shit doesn't happen more frequently.
Yeah, and the president's, obviously President Trump wrote a tweet or a post on Truth Social, whatever you call it over there. He says, the Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot. It was far above the 200-foot limit. That's really not too complicated to understand, is it? Do you agree with that statement and that assessment from the president?
I do. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And that's a fact. You're supposed to be below 200 feet right there, and they weren't. You have to ask why. So, no, I agree with it. And honestly, if you want to make changes and you want to fix things, I also agree with, hey, let's put some thick skin on and come up with a fast solution. Let's identify this quickly so we can get back to work and make everything work properly and put in the changes that need to happen. So, sometimes, like you said, you want to be careful speculating for the sake of the families.
Sure.
You want to fix stuff too, right? You don't want it to happen to anybody else. So let's find a fix now and not 3 years down the road.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and last question here for you, Mark, before we let you go. What is the fix? What would you recommend in the future for training flights like this, or do they need to happen in that congested of an airspace?
Yeah, I would say training flights will always need to happen everywhere. You have to have people qualified and able to do these things. I would identify probably 2 solutions. One, ATC is probably, and they're probably already going to do this. ATC is going to become a lot more stringent on when and how they're sequencing helicopter traffic down the river. So, for example, instead of allowing visual separation, they're going to say, no, I need you to hold at Haines Point until, traffic is safe on the ground, and then I'll let you fly through. So they're going to change protocols. That's going to happen. Number 2, I would say the Army's probably going to identify and adjust essential equipment to help avoid collisions. So commercial airliners have a system in it called TCAS. That's a collision avoidance system. And they get information on where other aircraft are so that they can avoid it and they don't fly into it. Well, the Army equips their aircraft for tactical considerations and not always to integrate the best into aviation traffic. But I would highly recommend, and I don't make decisions there anymore, and this is just me, armchair quarterbacking, but maybe they need to get some better equipment on aircraft that are flying in these airspaces. That's their mission, so that these pilots can reference TCAS ADS-B data and not have to, come up with a less desirable solution.
Okay.
Well, I do actually have one final question. So I was looking at your LinkedIn, and it says you started with the Marine Corps and then you upgraded to the Army. Congratulations on that. I guess it's not really a question, just that the Marine Corps can go fuck itself.
Yeah, just you're proud of it. That's all. You can say you're proud of it.
Well, he was your second assignment, I guess, or your first assignment when you went to the Army was at Bragg with the 82nd Aviation. I may have ridden on one of your birds at some point. Who knows?
Liberty, I think you mean, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I mean fucking
sure?
Fort Bragg, yeah, which it will be again pretty soon.
Bragg.
Yeah, it'll be Bragg again soon because Hexeth has "We the People" tattooed on his fucking arm.
He's already called it that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it'll be back by Monday. By the time this show airs, it'll probably be back.
We just got to get past this retarded period and move back into doing what the military is supposed to do. I'll be glad to see that happen.
Exactly. Mark Ulsh, thank you for your time today, sir.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
Yep. Bye.
D'Anthony, man, it's sometimes a tough pill to swallow. When somebody is in the wrong and everything else, and
no, we do these AARs. I mean, look, there's this saying that sweat and training prevents blood in combat, right? Mm-hmm. And we go through we call it an intense training cycle for our larger infantry element, and then when tasked for specific raids or hostage rescue or whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter what it is. Tier 2, Tier 1 operators will sometimes, and we've seen it with the Bin Laden raid, they'll build a literal copy of the fucking place and do it over and over and over again. And they'll use sim rounds, they'll use live rounds to go through there. And if somebody fucks up, you get called out for it. And you got to make it better. That's just the way it is, man. I mean, that we're playing. This is not. It's not a sports game where if you fail, get them next time. If you fail here, people die. We call it no-fail missions, right? People die. So it's this, and this is what happens, unfortunately. That's why I train so hard, which is why you should have a great deal of respect and confidence in these people, because this is the anomaly. This doesn't happen very much. You know what I mean? It's been It's been a very long time since this happened.
Yeah. And I found it interesting with Trump's comments, because Trump online, they were like, oh, you're insensitive and everything else. But he said, no, this is what it is, man. And you got to fucking fix it.
People in the military would agree with him. Civilian people would probably not. But that's kind of the same as white women getting offended on behalf of minorities who don't get offended by things.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're a civilian, shut your fucking mouth. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't care about it, or you can have your opinion on it too, but not that part, right? The goal is to get it right so people's lives are safe. That's it.
And that's why you ask the questions to somebody who is actually there. So we appreciate Mark for being here today. And then Bob, there's a little bit cleaner footage, which I chatted about earlier here that we have. It's nuts.
Timing. This D.C. cop just happened to be, or maybe it's an Arlington cop at the airport there, just happened to be driving in the direction that it was coming from and caught it on a dash cam.
I mean, look at this. It's just
there's like 8 in this carousel. This is the one you wanted first. But
play this one first, because the shadows, whoever did that, it was excellent. Watch it.
That's helpful. This is the original footage from the Kennedy Center, I believe.
Yes.
So this is spotlighted.
It's a little clear. You can see the Black Hawk better. Black Hawk's on the left, planes on the right.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and play that, Bob.
And you can see it. The Black Hawk just continues right on its path. It doesn't go up or down or anything. So they clearly never saw that aircraft.
No, but
I think he's probably right. It was a 3-man crew, so there was a crew chief who was probably on the other side of the bird. There was a left seat female captain, I think, and a right seat chief, male chief on there. They probably never saw that bird. They were looking at another bird out in the distance, which is what a lot of the pilots said on Twitter immediately after it happened.
Yeah,
like almost every Black Hawk and Apache pilot I saw posting said exactly that same thing.
But to a civilian, when you watch this, it looks like you were intentionally trying to do this.
Yeah.
So I understand the conspiracies and all that other stuff. What's the other video you have, Bob?
Well, luckily we have.
Oh, is this the dash cam one? Okay.
He just happened to be driving with his partner, a female partner that you can hear her talking to.
What happened? Oh my God.
No fucking way, dude.
Wait, that's not a cop.
Press pause.
That's just somebody's dash cam in their fucking Uber. Or
Yeah,
something.
man. Because
somebody told me it was a
music
police
is-
officer, but they're playing
No,
like
they're
fucking Bluey.
mariachi.
It's like Bluey or something. In
No,
the
I know
background.
Bluey. If it's Bluey, I can tell you it's Bluey. I'm doing this for my kids. Dance. Like, that's dance mode, obviously. But,
Yeah.
Mom, can we play Plane Crash?
What's it?
Oh,
What's the other one? Bingo.
Bingo,
I've
yeah.
been indoctrinated into this world recently. I'm learning.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, this is
dude.
wild how this motherfucker just happened to be going in that direction.
Look at that. My God, dude. And again, it's...
Oh, this is the police dash cam
Okay.
here. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different angles of it now. It's weird how many things caught it, but then again, not really, because that's the main traffic point for that whole area.
This
so
is
it's
the
not that
Kennedy
weird.
Center one from
Yeah,
the
this
that
is
was
the
original
OG,
one. That's
but-
the one we showed.
Yeah.
But without
fake
the
news.
spotlight on it or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not everything is a fucking conspiracy, my dudes.
No.
Sometimes it's just incompetence, and it's kind of rude to say that, but it is what it is. I mean, if here's what I've done: kick down a fucking door or put my shoulder through it, and sometimes in Iraq, the door is here, but the floor is here, so it's like a fucking 6 to 8 inch drop as soon as you go inside. Definitely have face planted, and you know what people did?
Walked right over you.
Right the fuck over
Yeah.
me, because that's the only thing you can do. It's happened to quite a few dudes over the years. I'm not the only dipshit, but yeah.
It just didn't cost you your life.
It didn't, but I mean, it could have, and it could have fucked everybody else up too.
Yeah.
Which is the bad part,
And then the other awful part of this, before we put a bow on this story, is now the families and the victims have to watch this footage over and over and over again forever from 80 different angles. Because, we had the Kennedy Center one yesterday. Now we're getting fucking mariachi music from an Uber and everything else.
Maybe it was Mexican Bluey. How do you say Bluey in Mexican?
Azul.
Azuli?
Yeah, Azuli. Azuli!
I don't know. Azuli kind of sounds A-Rabbit-ish, doesn't it? I don't know.
A little bit. Azul was
That makes me
blue.
nervous. We're talking about
Spanish.
planes and now Arabs. I don't know.
Your boy Thomas Massey today. God damn, this guy. You were the one who turned me on to him. I didn't really know too much about him. One, he the other day put on a display for how to get free heat during the winter by making his own shit there in the backyard. Like,
Yeah, he just made his. I mean, he does that all the time, though. He's complete. Like people say off grid. He is literally completely off grid.
Is he a literal genius?
Yeah, he went to MIT. He's got an engineering degree from MIT.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So-
he's the smartest person in Congress, and it's not close.
No. And today, I don't know if you saw this just a couple hours ago. He introduced a bill to terminate the Department of Education.
It's one page.
One page and one sentence. Yeah. Bob, if you can pull that up. He actually posted on his Twitter here a couple hours ago. And he says here, I just reintroduced H.R. 899, a one-sentence bill to terminate the Federal Department of Education and return power back to the teachers and parents. This is it. This is the entire bill. I don't think I've seen anyone present a bill like this in my entire life.
This is how every bill should look.
Right, but tell the audience what this would mean if we eliminated the Department of Education.
It means that we would no longer have a bunch of communists indoctrinating our children. That the power to educate your children would go back to the parents where it fucking belongs. And there's a long history of this stuff. We don't have time to go into it today, of how Rockefeller and Henry Ford reimagined, as they called it, the American education system. And it was basically to create drones, to make compliant workers. And you can see that today, right? Think about what like even back in the 80s. Let's do it before the communist stuff came in, the Marxist stuff. The 1980s, what was a good student, right? Quiet, did your work, fucking
Good grades. Maybe won the spelling bee.
Got along with people, but you definitely weren't raising hell. You weren't like creativity didn't really come into it. Like no report card said, "Oh, he's so creative." Like no, it would never say that, right?
No.
Because you want fucking little drones to be pumped out, just smart enough to work the machines, but not so smart that they figure out the machines actually own them. You know what I mean? And it, you know, worked for a long time because America was a manufacturing center, and it's not anymore. It's a technological center. So instead of reforming education in the 1990s as we should have, they just said, you know what? Let's just do Marxism now. You know what I mean? Let's get these people hooked on the idea of social welfare and justice instead of actually being productive with their lives and giving them a sense of purpose. And say what you want to about Rockefeller and Ford, but they pumped out quite a few happy people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like people were happy going to work, knowing how much they're going to make that year, buying a house for $12,000 fucking dollars.
Yeah, I was
all
gonna
this
say,
stuff.
That still exists to this day.
How do you balance? And again, it's not good to just be like, be a drone. I'm not
not
advocating for that.
But
how do
they
you
created
balance,
a lot of jobs.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
how do you balance the explosion of education and literacy and economic well-being with that?
It doesn't happen without Rockefeller and Henry Ford and the GI Bill. Those three things, those two people and the GI Bill together built the middle class in this country. There's no question about that. It wasn't the fucking New Deal that did that. Let's be real clear about that. This idea of social welfare had nothing to do with building the middle class. I have no idea where that comes from. That's retarded. That's absolutely retarded. So, you know, we if the Department of Education did what it was supposed to do, it would advise states on, hey, here are the burgeoning industries in America. Here's our 5, 10, and 25-year outlook, right? Here are the jobs that we're going to need. And you should tailor your education to this. You should put more computer coding early in the kid's life. And I'm talking about like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade when they're still learning language structure, because that's what a programming language is. It's language structure. And you see the way it's used in the same way that a child learns grammar, and that's when they learn it, right? Like sentence structure and stuff like that. It's somewhere in those time periods. No, we don't do that. We fucking give them a taste in high school and then charge them $120,000 to learn it in college, right? It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And we don't do any of that stuff.
It's okay. That's what Minecraft is for.
Yeah. I mean, Minecraft helped for sure.
It literally you code in Minecraft, kind of like it is kind of like
it's rudimentary.
Coding.
And you're building also. Like I was playing it with my kids the other night, watching them play it, I should say, because I don't do it. But I was watching them play it. It's amazing how simple it is versus the complex, 3D video games we have today. And kids are gravitated towards this, and all they're doing is building a house, or building wells, or structures, or things like that. And I'm like, watching it. I mean, I was stunned the other night. Because both of them were playing it, my 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I was like, man, is it weird that I don't mind them playing this game? Because they're actually learning stuff?
Yeah, and by the way, we're in the uncanny valley. Kids don't give a fuck about graphics anymore.
No, they're back to 8-bit for fuck's sake,
like
dude.
Roblox.
That might actually be 32-bit, I think, or 16 for Roblox, but it's not high quality, right? And
no.
If you think about, and to come back to the Department of Education specifically, there's 4,400 people working there, right? It's a government salary, so with bennies and everything, minimum $100,000. That's $440 billion a year that's being thrown away for people to fucking indoctrinate your children. They don't perform any fucking function, right? Like the local schools do all the stuff. Yeah. They get curriculum and stuff like that, but it doesn't cost $500 billion a year to make curriculum, right? So pare that down to like 12 people that administrate federal funding for schools. Like the only people that work at the Department of Education should be task or project managers and fucking accountants. That's it. There's no reason for them to be involved in any other stuff. And then if you want to bring back on some low-level, small organization that reports to Congress that gets some small budget to do research on what future projects are going to be. And as a matter of fact, you could have private companies fund it, as some of these things are already funded already, and it wouldn't cost taxpayers anything, because companies like Tesla and Apple and all these companies need employees. Now, 5 years from now, and 10 and 25 years from now, they're going to need employees. And them going back into the primary education and secondary education systems and actually setting it up so that people are better trained, not just to do the job itself, but to be a resilient human being and not a piece of shit, you know what I mean, would be highly effective. And it's not going to happen with 4,400 employees at the Department of Education, most of whom are blue hairs.
Yeah, because for me personally, when you're talking about coding and things like that, I know Vivek took some heat for this online about bringing in this Indian guy and some more of these HB1 visas to bring in some of these coders to teach Americans how to do it because they're better than us. me personally, I didn't have a problem with it because this is what we've talked about on the show forever. About, hey man, there is certain people, races, stereotypes actually work, and they are better than us. We can learn from them. I don't mind bringing the best and brightest from all over the world here. I just don't want the shit birds from fucking Venezuela, from the jails and all that other shit coming here. So I don't have an issue with that. The other thing that I read yesterday, which was fascinating, was more and more kids out of high school are gravitating more towards these blue-collar jobs. With welding and plumbing and things like that, because they think they're going to get replaced by AI if they go to college and take some other job that could replace them in 10, 15 years. And they're like, how would I support a family?
Well, what the really interesting part about that is, to be honest, is that you learn a trade like that, and then you learn later on how to use AI, and you can do your trade better. Right? If I'm a plumber, I can do all my CAD designs for like doing the plumbing for a home. Instead of just being a guy that shows up to repair plumbing, I can now design systems for a home if I want to, right? Like the full plumbing suite that goes inside of a house using AI through a CAD program where I've got this broad understanding of how plumbing works or electricity works in a home or something like that. Now I can use this tech to amplify it. And I think that's what we got to do. Same thing with the language thing. The fact that we teach kids a foreign language for the first time in their lives at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old is fucking stupid. It doesn't work.
Did you take language in grade school?
No. We didn't go to Jesuit school there, fucking rich boy.
Hey Bob, I did, but only because I was in that talented and gifted program, that tag program.
We didn't do any language stuff.
If I wasn't, but here's the thing, Bob. If I wasn't in that program, the answer is a hard no.
It's mostly Catholic schools and Mormons that do language early on.
Yeah, I had Spanish right after opera from kindergarten on.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you did. After chandelier building school?
Yeah. Well, I'm building. Come on.
You just tell Mexicans how to build.
Looking at the crystal. No, this isn't a Swarovski or whatever it is. No, I was in fourth grade, but it was, again, only because I was in an advanced program. Otherwise, not a goddamn prayer.
And unless you're in a Montessori, it's pretty rare.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You know what I mean? Like, even in kindergarten, it's really tough to, like, teach like, by then, it's kind of, I mean, you're more malleable, but it's not, it didn't stick.
No.
Really?
I mean, it needs to be, like, your entire, depending on what school system you're in, it needs to be K through 6 at a minimum. Right?
Yeah.
Kindergarten through 6th grade and every single semester of that time, right? And then you have to do, like, part of this is on the parents too. Like, if you even care about doing this, it doesn't really matter to me, but it does help your left brain activity quite a bit to learn a different language, which makes you more creative and a better writer also when you're older, which is, both of those are good things. But
they are, yeah.
To learn it then, you also have to have at least some form of immersion outside of the classroom, which is to say, blocks of time where you only speak that language. Otherwise, you can't think in that language. So you'll always be behind. You just won't be able to do it fluidly, right? So you have to have immersion as well at some point in there. And it can only happen when you're young. If you try to do it in high school, it won't work no matter what you do, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough time for it. And I would move that back to K through 6, and then I would replace it with a trade, regardless of what you're planning on doing in your life. You go to some kind of trade school, like classes for 2 years, right? You can pick the 2 years out of the 4 year in high school, but you go learn how to fucking work on cars or plumb or do electricity or some bullshit. It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter if you're ever planning on doing it. Knowing how to do things with your hands is important, and it'll make you better at figuring other shit out later. And then I would also add, I would replace the 4 semesters of a foreign language with community service. You're going to work on Meals on Wheels, like from your first period class or the last period of the day, from whatever 2 to 3:30 every day for this semester. You're going to fucking drive around and deliver food to old people or whatever the fuck.
Interestingly enough, at my school in Georgia, that is exactly what we had.
Yeah,
so,
we had that too.
Yeah,
it was a religion class for me, but we had to.
Yeah, we
Catholic
had to go.
Catholic schools are really the only ones that do it anymore.
Yeah, and I, by the way, didn't go to a Catholic school. It was what did we do? We took dogs to like old folks' homes, and then sat with them, learned their stories. They could hang out with the animals and all that other stuff. The other thing we had too was, I guess you would call it a car class, where you would drive your car and they would teach you how to do oil changes and all that other stuff. And
kind of like an analog to home ec or something.
Yeah, and that was wild. And
What they had that class in the movie Grease. What was it called?
I can't remember for the life of me.
It wasn't shop.
Close though. It was
I had
something
shop-
like that.
I had shop class.
Yeah.
Yeah, but shop's like wood and shit for the most part.
It
right?
is,
Like
yeah,
I mean, metal too, but like
It was
it's
just
not
it was mostly us trying to make bongs, to be honest, and get away with
Sure.
it. That's mostly what it was, but still, it was fun.
It was
creative,
but we did have that in high school in Georgia, and I don't know if that was a Southern thing or not. But yeah, we had to change our own oil with our cars and all that other stuff, and it was interesting because it broke up the day of not just sitting there in front of a teacher all day while they talk to you. Yes, you were
Which
using
is
your
also
hands and
not
then-
good for the brain, man. Like, I don't know why, I don't know when or why it started. This expectation that 4-year-olds all the way through 18 can just sit sedentarily for 9 hours a day and that not become a problem for them.
starting
right?
at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, starting
Yes.
at 7 in the fucking morning.
Yeah.
And some of those kids are on the bus at 5 a.m. Because of the route, right? So it's like, what is our expectation exactly here? Because there's several routes. People that just get through it and they're okay, right? Which is most kids for the most part, right? They just get through it and they're okay, but they're not getting as much out of the school as they should be. Right?
No.
And then the other one is the disruptive kid who's
Yep.
got more energy and he can't handle that situation and he lags behind intellectually because of it, right? And it's fucked up because it shouldn't be that way. It should be outside.
And
or whatever. The last one is the one that it turns into a drone, right? The person whose identity becomes go along to get along, right? And we don't need any more of those motherfuckers.
No.
We don't need one more of those.
And I can tell you, I can share a personal story because it just happened to me yesterday with Jagger, my 6-year-old. The teacher calls and says, "Hey, he's disruptive in class with this other kid or whatever." And I was like, "Well, how are his grades?" Like, "Well, he's one of the smartest kids in the class." And I was like, "Okay, well, what's the problem?" And they're like, "Well, he's finishing all of his work early, so him and this other kid are cutting up in class and doing whatever." And I'm like, "Okay." And I was like, "Is the other kid really smart too?" She goes, "Yes, the other kid's really smart too." So I go, "So they're just bored at that point because their work is done and they got nothing to do." And she's like, "Well, yeah, I guess." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, I drop him off at 7:20 in the morning, and then he doesn't get out of there until 2:30 in the afternoon. So what else are you supposed to do all day at that age?" And I'm with Thomas Massey on this one. It's leave it up to the state. Let's start having some other plans in there.
I mean, I would leave it up to
some
the
of the other
parents.
ones that were set up for us as kids were more interesting, and it broke up the day a little bit more, and it included all the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest issue with education is not even education. It's that we don't have that we have 2-income households now, right?
Yes.
Because it just for thousands of years was not like that, and it's relatively new. I mean, if you think about it in terms of British civilization, which is what we are, this is 100 years old, right? Since the late 9th century is when British civilization started. This is 100 years old. It's very new, and we let it get out just like we did with everything else, right? With the Republic, with politicians, with corporate interests, we've let it get out of hand, and now it's got to be reined in a little bit. And it's going to be tough, but it's not even just letting the states decide stuff. It's also allowing for parental involvement. Now, a couple of ways you can do that is to stop, and I've seen some radical, some extremely radical theories or ideas on what we could do for this. One of them I heard is that if you have 2 or more kids that are under 18, you don't pay any taxes ever, right?
I would love that.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah, me and Bob would love that. I can tell you that right now. Yeah.
Now, anytime we talk about these things, right? And by the way, that was it was in response to how can we get people to have more kids and stay together and build family units, right? So you stay married and you have kids and then blah, 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 right? And pay no taxes. Or if you get divorced and remarried again, you've got kids together. Yeah, they're fucking no taxes. And it's people without kids. Well, what the fuck? Right? Okay, fair. That's fair. But the point is to get to 0 taxes and to replace all this stuff with tariffs or something else. Because
Trump has pitched that.
Yeah.
Is that a viable option, and will that really happen? Because that's what everybody's speculating today about.
Our economy was so strong that we were able to let Germany and Japan leech off of it, and they still are right now, by the way. They're still doing it. So is all of Europe, still leeching off our economy, and still maintain the best economy in the world for 75 fucking years. That's how strong our economy is. So we should be profiting from it. We should be profiting off probably not 25%, but low-level tariffs, 5 to 10%, to go into a sovereign wealth fund. One, it pays the things that the government needs to pay for, which will be dramatically reduced. They've already cut $1 billion from the budget in 2 weeks. But dramatically reduce that, pay for the stuff the government needs to pay for, and then start a goddamn sovereign wealth fund that is divested into foreign currencies, into Bitcoin, into mining rights in South America, and all this other bullshit, right, that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, that are making money for us instead of costing us money. $1 trillion every 100 days in debt we're creating right now, right? Now, Musk's plan with Doge is to cut $1 trillion from the budget, which is going to, and if it happens, this is by
2026.
April 14th.
Yes.
I think it's tax day 2026 is when it expires. And they're on track to do it right now. According to the government reports I've seen so far, they're actually on track to do this.
And he said, by the way, not to interrupt you, that they could eliminate inflation altogether if they do it by that date.
If they eliminate $1 trillion from the budget between now and that date next year, it will eliminate inflation for at least 1 year, right? And then we'll see moving forward. But it should, like when we say eliminate inflation, basically what you're saying is that my dollar today will be worth $1 a year from now, which right now, best case scenario, it's 98 cents. Under Biden, in 4 years, your dollar went from $1 to 78 cents in 4 years, right?
Which is not great.
It's not great, which is why if you're just keeping money in your checking account, even if you're like, so the guy, we've had him on the show before, Jack Spirko. He's that dude up in Northeast Texas. He's a off-grid dude, builds all this. He builds permaforest farms and stuff like that. Incredible dude. He buys $5 of Bitcoin every day.
Okay.
Right? Every single day, which at the end of the year, what is that, like $1,900 or something like that? It's not that much.
No,
but Bitcoin over a 5-year period is increasing by like 200% every 5 years.
One of our advertisers, Acorns, is like that, and I've used them for years, and it operates in like pennies, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, whatever is left over on your transaction, do you want to put it in this Acorns account? And then it goes into the S&P 500, and you're like, all right, great. And it just accrues interest. You don't really think about it.
It's like
over
the
the
change
years.
in your fucking couch from 20 years ago.
Correct.
But now it goes into a fund that's actually making you money.
Right. So it's the same
principle, yeah, but on a fucking much larger scale. We're talking about with a couple of $1 trillion at this point, which means every couple of percent we're paying off massive chunks of this debt that we have, right? And our debt to income ratio right now isn't terrible. 35 trillion is a lot. 36, whatever it is now, it's a lot. But it's not the worst thing in the world. But it's on, if it doesn't get stopped soon, it will be, right? It's like you look at your credit card, you're like, oh, fuck, I'm like 80% on this card. I better start paying it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where we are right now. We're not going to die anytime soon. But if we don't stop this in 10 years, we're fucked, right? Which now we're going to at least put a 4-year hold on it, which will give us some breathing room. And I think that'll be good. But yeah, we got to start that sovereign wealth fund, not just for the economy necessarily, but to give American citizens some relief from this overtaxation. The reason people, if you ask somebody why they're not having kids, there's 2 reasons, right? Or there's 3. One, they can't find somebody, which is an incel or just dipshittery problem. Not necessarily theirs, but the people around them as well. But that's one of them. But the other 2 are can't afford it, and I don't want to bring a kid into this kind of world. Those are the 2 main ones, right? And you can solve that fucking problem by making America great again and by stopping these taxes. You can solve both of those problems, and all this bullshit about fucking our birth rates going down and stuff will be ended in a 5-year period. 5 years is how long it'll take, right? And it'll save this fucking country.
Another thing that was interesting today, that this is supposed to go into effect on Monday, according to the White House, is a 25% tariff on Mexico.
In Canada.
And Canada, and I believe 10% on China. And this is in regards to fentanyl and the border. How will that affect prices? Because people were bitching online of this will cost the American consumer an extra, $250 billion or $1 million or whatever it is. But if we make the proper cuts within our own government, won't they take care of itself?
China's not going to stop sending their products here, right?
I agree.
So maybe they cost more, but the tariff money is the argument is that tariff will just be added to the cost of the price, right? It'll get passed on to the taxpayer, American taxpayer, no matter what. And in some cases, that'll be true. Certainly, it'll be true. The difference is I can choose not to buy that Chinese product, right? Now, right now, I don't know if you know this, but you can't choose to not pay the IRS because they will come to your house with guns and put you in prison for it.
Or they'll just take the money right out of your account.
Or they'll take it right out of your account without you knowing.
What has happened to us.
It happened to some fucking streamer the other day. He got $300,000 automatically taken out of his account. He was like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, it's called taxes, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all hate it. We want it to go away, right? So if you give me an option between choosing to pay taxes versus not choosing to pay taxes, well, guess what, motherfucker? I'm taking the choosing. I will adjust my life. These little things don't matter. The little plastic shit in your life doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, it's poisoning you right now. Go find something glass to put your water in, dipshit. You know, it's like, what is it exactly that's coming from China that's going to be a problem for me? And, you know, same thing with Canada, by the way. They tried to stunt on us. Like, you're not going to have any oil or gas or maple syrup. Like, dude, we produce more oil and gas in a week than you do in a fucking year. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you're 12th on our list for imports. What the fuck are you talking about?
Now, the maple syrup is probably true.
We've got, no, Vermont makes maple syrup. Vermont makes maple syrup. And by the way, honey is better than maple syrup. I don't want to ruffle any fucking Canuck feathers over there.
I'm not putting honey on waffles.
Honey is quite a bit more nutritious than maple syrup.
I'm sure it is.
Just to be clear.
It's not going to taste
and it tastes better. If you put a little Mike's Hot Honey, which, by the way, Anson is an investor in.
Is he really?
Oh, yeah.
I like it on pizza, but yeah, I can't do it
Try
on waffles.
Get yourself some sourdough bread. Cut some slices of it, right? Make it a thick slice, too, because you want to get some of that.
Look, I've had it on pizza. I love it. I already love it. I'm sold on that.
Mike's Hot Honey on top, then some burrata on top of that, and a little bit of prosciutto, right? And now you've got yourself something.
I'm sold on that. You're not going to sell kids, though, on putting hot honey on waffles in the morning. I can tell you that.
Oh, no, not for the kids, obviously.
Yeah, you sleep over at someone's house. Can I have some syrup for my pancakes, like, in the morning? And it's like, oh, no, we do honey.
We do hot honey here.
Fucking damn it.
Fuck you, dude.
I hate Jim's house so fucking much.
God, I had a kid like that in high school, man. I hated him. I hated his parents. I eventually stopped being friends with him.
Well, with the kids, you just got to give them whatever. But just so long as they eat something and don't, because they'll die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for adults, you shouldn't be putting that shit in your body.
The last thing I want to ask you about today here, since we're drinking and having fun here, this was a weird one, man. I don't know why, Bob, if you go to your Twitter and just pull this video up, man, I don't know why I got such a weird, visceral reaction to this last night. But I don't sleep a lot, so I'm typically up late and looking for stories for shows and all this other stuff, man. Play this on full screen here. So this Kai Cenat dude, who I fucking hate, I guess he's like the world's biggest streamer or whatever.
I don't know who this is.
Oh, he's massive. And like this is the one that like Kevin Hart and everybody and their mother.
He's tiny.
No. But his stream is he's the biggest streamer in the world.
I was gonna ask what's
he's tiny in real life.
What's big about him? Does he get like a big foot or leg or something?
No.
He's a tiny man.
He's a tiny man, but he has the biggest following in all of streaming, and like every celebrity and their mother will show up to this dude's fucking shithole place and do this shit, and he does just wild shit and spends all kinds of wild money because he makes so much, and that's all fine. It's all fun and games, but like my kids, oddly enough, like my oldest, doesn't like him. However, he puts out content that forces you to watch it, and I got forced to watch this last night, where I was like, God damn it, man! Even this motherfucker got me. He bought a $70,000 robot. One of the ones that can walk, can stand up on its own, which is creepy as fuck. And him and his buddy started beating the shit out of this robot, and here's what happened.
Oh, no! Bitch ass nigga. Lame ass nigga. Bitch ass nigga. What's that nigga? Nigga, you a fucking robot, nigga. Oh, shit. Oh, my bad, my boy. You up down there, man, nigga? Nigga, where your mom at, nigga? Where your mom at, boy? Where your mom's at, my boy?
Oh!
What the fuck was that?
Wait, he's extra heavy, man.
Bro, this is 70,000, bro.
So 70,000. When he's saying 70,000, it was $70,000. Like, you can press stop here on this robot. I don't know why I had a wild reaction to this last night, but like, if this thing is this fucking close already, where you can push it to the grounds, you can keep pushing it, and then it finally gets up and gets in your fucking face like this. This goddamn thing is 2 to 3 years away from just absolutely ripping this kid's head off and throwing it out the fucking window.
Yeah, I mean, good. Fuck this guy. You know what I mean?
I say fuck this guy.
You can tell everything you need to know about somebody by how they treat things that can't defend themselves.
So that's exactly what this argument has been going on last night and into this morning about this fucking video.
Dude, I felt like I was watching the opening scene of some 80s movie about the civil rights era, like open on Lonely Road in Mississippi morning. A young black boy is walking to school. A pickup truck comes down the road in a cloud of dust.
Yeah.
Where you going, boy?
Yep. That's exactly what this thing, dude. I felt the same way watching this shit.
Oh, you know how to read, boy?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like we got ourselves a reader.
Yeah, exactly.
We gonna be fighting for robot rights soon.
Seats taken.
My kids are gonna watch this in like black and white and on a fucking educational video in 15 years in high school.
And they would be like, that's how it started. This is how the robots took over, and they said, fuck you. And watching this shit, because it was remarkable, one, how the robot got up after the getting shoved down. But then there was something inside of it that went right back up to that dude. And I was like, man, if we're there now at $70,000, 2 to 3 years, this thing will just rip off everyone's heads and be like, cool, I'm a real person. And then how does this not spread amongst the rest of them where they're teaming up and saying, fuck these humans, dude?
Yeah. I mean, how could you blame them?
You can't. And when you watch this shit, you're just like, God damn, dude.
He's gone crazy now, but Sam Harris in his book, The Moral Landscape, back in the day, just talking about kind of a science-based approach to ethics and morality, right? That was the point of the book, and he's a neuro researcher and all this shit. Something he said, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was like, at the moment we recognize that something is sentient, whether it's an animal or a fucking machine or whatever the fuck else, we have a moral responsibility to be kind to it the same way we would to a fucking person, right? This just seems like, I mean, look, this always happens. The cruelest, dumbest people among us always expose themselves eventually, right?
Yeah.
And we get to all watch them get their faces ripped off. Now, hopefully it doesn't, hopefully we'll have time to let these guys know that we're not all the same. You know what I mean? Before Battlestar Galactica happens, basically.
That's exactly what I thought watching this video. Yeah. And like, to me, Bob, I don't know if you felt the same, but like, because your description, and I know Delka was laughing at it, but like, there was so many people on Twitter last night with the same exact reaction you had, and that's what I felt. I felt like I was watching somebody getting bullied like a kid in a fucking teen movie or something.
Yeah.
And, the kid wins, and you're like, all right, like I was rooting for the robot watching this video.
100%. It's like, we got a crush on me? You want to kiss me, don't you?
Yeah.
Fucking queer.
And you're just like, what?
God damn. Except the difference is that this thing has like superhuman strength and can rip their spine out their asshole if it felt like it.
Not now. But in a couple of years, but it will. And like, I hope it happens on this fucking dickhead stream live, because let's face it,
rips his dick off and nutsack at the same time.
But to go back to the top of the show with the two planes colliding, once that footage is out there, we'll have it forever. And I hope it happens live on his stream. One of these robots tears his face off and just throws it directly at the camera.
Or puts it on his face.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine that, dude?
Best.
I would fucking definitely pay for their Patreon to see that.
For sure.
If you need a new streamer, God, what's his name?
Kai Cenat, I think is his name.
We'll
and again, it's weird because kids hate this guy, but yet you can't stop watching this bullshit. And then celebrities show up just because they want to gain extra followers and all that other bullshit. Like Kevin Hart had a sleepover at his house the other night. We were just like, what? And they're pouring water on people's faces that go to sleep first. And you're just like, there's no way this is the real world.
It's pretty odd.
Yeah.
The best way to handle this, by the way, is to have one person. This is what everybody, especially on Twitter, who's monetizing content, should do. Just don't share his post or comment on it or anything. Just have one person that downloads it and then puts it on theirs, right? That way he doesn't get any money. Because that's all this is rage bait. This is what he wanted, is us talking about this so other people will go watch his original content. Do the world a favor and search for it, but don't click on his name ever.
You can't?
You can.
No, I know
somebody
can't.
will repost it somewhere else. You can watch it there, but you don't have to watch it on his channel.
Oh,
That's what you should do.
I understand it. It's just you can't stop this guy, and it's just fucked. And he's been doing this for a long time now, and here we are. We're fucking talking about it. One of the biggest goddamn podcasts in the world. So there you have it. Now's the point of the show. We get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week. You can submit at drinkinbros.com. Bob, pull up the store. Sales have been massive here for these FEMA shirts in particular. And the Bro Box. Got a charcuterie board in there with the Drinkin' Bros logo burned into it. And the FEMA is missing. I think is doing so well because they'll be gone soon. I think they'll be gone soon. The LA fires, no help there. And thank you for all the reactions and all the DMs regarding Gary and Joel's documentary. That thing's amazing. You can watch it on YouTube right now. And then order the Bro Box on there so you can get the Valentine's Day edition for your loved one. This one is actually for a man and a wife, or a dude and a dude if you want to do dude and dude. Whatever, dude. We don't fucking kink shame here. And on there, we've got the Drinkin' Bro of the Week submission. It gets emailed to us live on air. It's also available on our app, which is free. Dan and I pay for that. So if you go to iPhone or Android and just download the Drinkin' Bros app, all the shows are on there. Patreon's on there. The store is on there. Hard AF Seltzer's on there. And there's a wall where you can post whatever you want. There's some of the wildest fucking memes I've ever seen on there. There is no admin. No one can stop you from posting whatever.
The only admin is God, and he's not going to deal with you until you're dead. Just to be clear, so
that's up to you.
Yeah.
There's one dude who just keeps posting nudes of his wife on there, which we enjoy. So no, we don't want to stop that. This one that just came in, who's this? Drinkin' Bro submission, Colleen McAllister from Washington. Day one homie. Sam and Elaine Schuler living. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hey guys, day one listener here. Absolutely love the podcast and everything this community stands for. Thank you. I want to nominate my parents, Sam and Elaine, as Drinkin' Bros of the Week. My parents are the hardest working, most loyal, and supportive people I know. They're in their 70s and still working up until about 3 weeks ago. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 incurable cancer and had to stop working due to treatments and discomfort. My dad had to stop slinging hammers and pounding nails to become my mom's full-time caregiver. My parents are not wealthy people, but they've never let that get in the way of caring for us kids, or visiting their grandkids, or just being good people in general. I know this is all over the place, but needless to say, I just want to give a shout out to my mom and my dad. Thanks, guys. And if you're allowed to read the link for my mom's GoFundMe for medical expenses for the podcast, that'd be great. Sure. It's GoFundMe.com/help Elaine battle stage 4 cancer. Absolutely. Cheers. Sorry you're going through this. I said this a couple weeks ago on the show. One of my friends' wife, who's considerably younger, is going through this as well. It's a tragic situation, and unfortunately, you need a full-time caregiver in situations like these. But thank you for listening day in and day out. We greatly appreciate it. Go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. It's all the advertisers care about. At 10,000, again, I will stop. I know I've said this 1,000 times in the past. Spotify, we're getting there, though. We're only like 600 away. So we're close to me never saying go to Spotify and rate the show again. So that's nice. Do that if you can't buy a T-shirt or something, or a 12-pack of Hard AF. We greatly appreciate it. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Podcast. Good night, everyone.